All right, guys, welcome back to the Backchat Podcast. It's me and Cam today. We have a very depressed Cam, considering that the Bruins lost, unfortunately, in 6 games, but he is cheering on the Islanders for the conference finals. So good to know. Good to know. Today we are going to be talking about redo of the 2010 NHL Draft. And if you like our content, please make sure to subscribe and like all our videos. We will post at least once or twice every week for you guys. Considering now that school is over for me, and Cam Cam is hanging on to me here, and I'm trying to plead him to come to more episodes as much as possible to make you guys happy. But the 2010 NHL draft was full of good talent. I mean, the first overall pick was Taylor Hall. Second guy was Tyler Seguin, and the third guy was, I think, Eric Goodbranson, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yep,
Tyler
Florida.
Seguin and Taylor Hall, there are no jokes here. I mean, both of them have over 500 points in their careers. They're absolutely amazing. And yeah, so there was also a lot of shocking picks that I was surprised to see come much later, not even in the first round. But we're gonna make sure we're gonna keep that a surprise for you guys. So we're going to redo the first 15 picks of the 2010 draft, and from scratch. If each of these teams had to pick a player, we were also not going to say because how good they are, but maybe because why they would fit on that team as well if they were picked at that time. So Cam, we're going to start with number one here. And I don't think this should be a really hard pick, but it can be considering now what we see. But in my opinion, I can only consider three guys for this at all. Mark Stone, Taylor Hall, or Tyler Seguin. One of those three guys has to go first overall. So Cam, who would go first overall in the 2010 NHL entry draft for the Edmonton Oilers, who would be on the clock at this point?
Yeah, Edmonton Oilers originally selected Taylor Hall with the first pick in the 2010 draft. The big debate that year was Taylor or Tyler.
Yeah.
But now that we see a new star has emerged in Vegas, Captain Mark Stone. He's been, over the last 5 years, he's been an incredible defensive player, and now he's one of the best wingers in the league. And I know he was a little late to develop. It took him about 5, maybe 6 years to actually get his name on the map. But now we know that he's one of the best wingers in the league. I am taking him first overall on a heartbeat. And that's it. Him and Edmonton, I mean, who knows what the other redrafts will lead to, but I mean, Connor
What's so
McDavid and Mark
funny?
Stone.
Every team, all 30 teams at that point in the NHL had a chance to take Mark Stone at least twice, and they did not do it until the Senators did it. They did not take Mark Stone twice. He was drafted in the 6th round, 178th overall. And it's kind of like a Tom Brady story if you think, like, he was drafted really late. I don't know why no one picked him, but again, it's amazing to see how he's prospered. He's only been in Vegas, I think, for 2 or 3 seasons now, and he's already the first captain of the team. I was expecting maybe Max Pacioretty, considering he's been a captain before, but no, they took Mark Stone as the captain. That is absolutely impressive. I am going to go with Taylor Hall here, though. If the Oilers wanted to take Seguin and find a player worthy of the selection, the Bruins could have just taken him at number 2, which they ended up doing. I don't really see a difference in what would be wrong with taking Taylor Hall first overall. First of all, Edmonton, they were starting. This is the start of how they're going to get a bunch of first overall picks. Later on we would see Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, we would see Nail Yakupov, we would see Leon Draisaitl, and then we would see, of course, Connor McDavid come in. But I think that the Oilers at this point, they would have really needed a winger rather than a center. And I don't really see Taylor Hall ever taking faceoffs usually, but he absolutely, this would be my number one choice. I think the Oilers did do a good job here, and unfortunately, they had to let him go. They traded him to the Devils for that was the worst trade, one of the worst trades I've ever seen for Adam Larson. That was an absolutely bogus trade by the Oilers, but it is what it is.
Sure, man.
Yeah, that was an absolutely terrible trade. Adam Larson for Taylor Hall, please. It's so funny. Every team has made such terrible trades to get Taylor Hall or to give away Taylor Hall. Like, it's so funny. I don't know why. There's never been a decent trade for him ever. But
his value depending on the GM, I guess, fluctuates depending on who you are.
Absolutely.
Insane.
And, all right, so the number 2 pick here, in this case, the Boston Bruins will be on the clock. And I mean, this one, I'm obviously going to take Mark Stone here. The Bruins, they were one. This is 1 year before they won the Stanley Cup, and that Stanley Cup team was absolutely stacked. We can't say Tyler Seguin because if we're taking Mark Stone here, but Brad Marchand was emerging. He had signed a contract in 2010, I believe,
Yep.
or after the Stanley Cup. I think
No,
he
he
did it
won.
after the Stanley.
No, he won the Stanley Cup. That was his rookie year, and he went off in the playoffs. Played with
Yeah,
Patrice Bergeron and Mark
Bergeron
Recchi.
and Zdeno Chara, of course, was in there. They
Krejci,
got
Horton,
yeah.
Lucic.
Absolutely. Those guys, that was the ultimate team. Chris Kelly as well. Those guys were
Chris
those
Kelly,
enforcers.
Peverley.
Big deal in the playoff for them, and then a huge assets in the Stanley Cup Finals against Vancouver. But
Yeah.
I think Mark Stone, if they took him at a young age like this, it might be a bit risky. But considering who Mark Stone is now, oh my God, like the Bruins would have a ball with him. I mean, they could put him instead of Pasternak on the right wing. It wouldn't matter. They can just flip-flop it. They will never have to worry about a thing on that first line. So I'm going to take Mark Stone here for the Bruins at pick number 2. And, pick number 3 belongs to the Florida Panthers. Cam will tell us who he thinks is going to be at number 3.
Yeah, for my second pick, I'm going with Tyler Seguin because I want, as a Bees fan, I really wanted to see what Seguin could have became in Boston. And that was an absolute terrible trade. Still makes me sad till today. He'd be a heck of a second line center, learning from Patrice Bergeron. And if you give him some talented wingers like he had now, a lot of things could be different. But besides the fact, and for my third pick, I'm actually going to go with Vladimir Tarasenko. Oh, wow. And I think Tarasenko is a really talented sniper, puts up a lot of goals, and if this guy could have stayed healthy, I mean, not to, I think he's a good 40 goal scorer when he's healthy. But Tarasenko, you give him some good centers, maybe a guy like Alex Barkov to dish the puck to. Little Finnish and Russian chemistry there, and I think that'd be pretty interesting. Who do you pick third overall?
Yeah, so I am going to go with Tyler Seguin for third overall here. That trade is still kind of a head scratcher if you think about it. I mean, it's a 7-player trade, but the 2 guys that were mostly involved in it were Louis Eriksson and of course Tyler Seguin. But Sagan's trade to Dallas was it was mind blowing still today. I mean, I don't know what happened, but what were they thinking? But after he had won the Stanley Cup with Boston, I thought he was going to be a mainstay on the team. But I think Seguin fits in Florida. I really do think that. At some point you're going to see how Huberdeau will come into the picture in 2014. They have Barkov, I think, at that point. So, or Barkov actually came later in that draft, actually, to be honest with you. So
yeah, Huberdeau was drafted 2011. I think Barkov was drafted.
Yeah, sorry, 2011. 13. So last year or 1 year later. That's what I meant. But we see Huberdeau, we see Alexander Barkov, and then you can move Seguin on winger maybe because you'll have Barkov at center. That's an absolutely stacked line for Florida. I don't see any reason why to not take Seguin here. And, Tarasenko is a good pick here. I really think so. But again, you compare Tarasenko's numbers to Seguin's numbers, and Seguin has mostly dominated Tarasenko throughout the years. And both of them are extremely talented players, forwards as well. But I think Seguin might win this duel here against Tarasenko, and I'm going to go with him at number 3. But for number 4, the Blue Jackets are on the clock, and that one is pretty obvious. I will take Vladimir Tarasenko at number 4. The best pure goal scorer in the draft, like he fell in my lap, but 3 players in the 2010 NHL draft have more goals: Seguin, Hall, and Jeff Skinner. But Tarasenko has played 507 games up to this point, where I think 507 plus games. So he's played more than 500 games, but Seguin has 65 more goals than Tarasenko does, but has played 234 more games. So that's the reason why I would put Tarasenko a little less than Seguin, even though he's played more games. But Tarasenko I think it was a more prolific shooter compared to Seguin. But, I'm taking Tarasenko at number 4 for Columbus.
My Columbus pick, I'm going Taylor Hall here.
Oh, wow.
Now, a little dark. He had a couple of good seasons, really elite seasons. But I think he had a couple mediocre seasons, 60-point seasons, which is I'd say borderline elite. But I don't know. I think Taylor Hall, on Columbus, I'm not sure how he would fare there. To be honest, I don't think it would be pretty successful. But I think that's the best player available, and that's who Columbus would select. Looking at Columbus's roster right now, I could not picture Taylor Hall being on that type of team with not a first line center. So, man, I see Tarasenko more as a first liner right now than I do Taylor Hall, to be honest. So that's why I went Tarasenko over Taylor Hall personally, and that's why I did that. And that's all I got to say about that.
And guys, at the top of your screen, you'll see the first round picks, the actual first round picks in 2010 who were drafted. That is running at the top of your screen at this moment. At number 5, this was a bit of a dark horse for me, but I put Tyler Toffoli all the way at number 5 here. And there's a reason why. I love this guy. Tyler Toffoli is an absolute monster. I thought, when he was drafted by the Kings, first of all, he was drafted 47th overall by the Kings. He wasn't even in the top 20, or even in the first round. He was a second round draft pick. So if you consider this, Toffoli led the Kings, all right, to 2 Stanley Cups. He won 2 Stanley Cups. Then he became a monster in the qualifier round in 2020 with the Canucks. And now he's doing even better with the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, he
running top line with Caulfield and Suzuki.
Yeah, and he was in the top 20 for most goals scored this year as well. And I think he was also in there for top 20 in points. I can double check that, but I know he was in there for the top 20 goal scorers. And he was
top 5 in goals.
Yeah, he's a monster in goals and in scoring. And he has an absolutely great hands, great skill set. And this is not really a dark horse. I think this is actually a decent pick overall, but there's a lot of guys out there that I've seen other players, other people pick over Tyler Toffoli, but I'm going with Toffoli at number 5. The Islanders will have him at that point.
For my pick at number 5, I'm actually going with Brendan Gallagher. I think you look how the way the Islanders are built. They're fast, they're defensive, they're chippy. Brendan Gallagher molds this team perfectly. You can put him on a line with J.G. Pageau, Travis Zajac, and Brendan Gallagher, and that's one of the best third lines in the National Hockey League. And I'm watching that series, seeing how Barry Trotz uses home ice, not just for fans, but mostly matchups, and will match up the lines he wants to match up. Brendan Gallagher would fit that bill perfectly. And
yeah,
I like him. He's a great leader. He has a ton of heart. He goes to the net. He scores greasy goals. You can play him anywhere in the lineup. I mean, Brendan Gallagher, 5th overall. Maybe it seems like a stretch, but I think that's who I would select 5th overall.
I mean, all right. So that I think that was an amazing. That was a pretty dark. I think that should be a dark horse. Not gonna lie, but it's a good pick because I think Brendan Gallagher could bring a lot of not only veteran experience. I mean, all the guys on the Islanders I think will have veteran experience, but he's a good third line fit with JG Pageau, as you said. I think that's an absolutely well said statement. And again, Brendan Gallagher is a talented guy. I mean, he's been leading the Habs. He's a leader on this Habs team. So absolutely, he would be a good fit for number 5 on the Islanders. And number 6 here, I took Freddie Anderson here at number 6. I think he might go to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, I'm pretty sure Ben Bishop was not the goalie at the time in 2010, but if Anderson was there, he would be quickly developed. All right, because the
Dwayne Rolliston.
Yeah,
39-year-old, 40-year-old goaltender, and then Mike Smith was his backup, I believe, something like that.
Yeah, there's no way they would want to put Mike Smith in there. Mike Smith has never been a good goalie forever. Like he's been on and off. Yeah, most of the time he's off, but again, Freddie Anderson I think would be a great pickup here. You've seen what he's done with the Ducks. All right, he actually was picked by the Ducks. He was picked up by the Hurricanes, 187th overall, and then he was redrafted to the Ducks. And honestly, Freddie Anderson, now that they have John Gibson, he's obviously better than Freddie Anderson comparing, wise. But overall in the decade, I would say Freddie Anderson would be their starting goalie in an all-decade team for the Ducks. I mean, he's the countless number of times he's led them to the playoffs, and then those journeys they had, even a Western Conference final, unfortunately didn't win because a dominant Blackhawks team that would end up winning the cup that year. There's been nonstop action, and now that Anderson is in Toronto, it would be kind of weird to say that that we can't pick Anderson here because Anderson in Toronto, I mean, he was also good. He led them to three Stanley Cup playoff tries, 4 actually. And then, this year was taken over by Jack Campbell, but 4 of them, he led them to 3 game 7s, 2 game 7s, 1 game 5, but it was best of 5. So technically like a game 7. And then one of them, he got the first one against the Capitals. He got knocked off in 6 games. Not a bad start for Freddie Anderson. I mean, he's been consistent. They're always in the playoffs, but
like 917 save percentage every year.
Absolutely impressive.
Pretty good.
So I would definitely take Freddie Anderson here at number 6 for Tampa Bay.
My pick at number 6 is going to be Tyler Toffoli. I just picture like how good their offense is. Adding a guy like Tyler Toffoli, you could play probably anywhere from first to third line. He could fill the net. He brings leadership. He can also you can put him on the penalty kill if you need. Tyler Toffoli could do it all for Tampa, and I wonder where John Cooper would put him in the lineup today. He was on the team because he can plug anywhere.
I mean, honestly, I don't think he's a first line fit because that line is dominated by Alex Killorn, Steven Stamkos, and of course Cooch, right? So I wouldn't probably put him on a first line. But if we're looking at today's Tampa Bay team, all right, their lineups are kind of dominant. I mean, they're the best team in the league by far. And it's at center they put Braden Point at first, all right. He's the first center at for the Tampa Bay currently. They put Palat at left wing and they put Cooch at right wing. I could see him maybe at a third line fit between Goodrow, Gourde, and Coleman. I mean, that's a good fit for Tyler Toffoli if he was going to go to the Lightning, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. Coleman, Gourde, and Toffoli, that'd be a pretty good line.
Yeah. And so, all right, Cam's going to start off our number 7 pick. All right, the Canes would be on the board at this time.
The Carolina Hurricanes originally selected Jeff Skinner with this pick. At the time, that was a great pick, and he was a big part of the Hurricanes. When he was traded to Buffalo, people really questioned his value and why they didn't get as much as they should.
Yeah.
Buffalo did kind of ruin this man's development, but for my pick at 7th overall, I'm actually going to go with Zach Hyman from Toronto. The guy has emerged as a great top 6 player. He's one of the most defensive responsible players in the league. He's a guy who can get into the corners. He can play chippy. He can play him on any line from first to fourth. And a guy who scored 20 goals every year since entering the league, I'm pretty sure. Wow. Except this year. I don't think he scored 20 this year because of the shortened season, but yeah, makes the point. He's a good player.
Shocking pick for me. I mean, yeah, he's impressive, but he's no Matthews or anything like that. But it's a good pick overall. I think, Hyman is all around. He's not, when I say all around, I mean, he has good skills. It's not the best, but he's decent in every category you can think of. I mean, he does play an aggressive game, but again, it would be a good pick. All right. And at number 7 here, I made a kind of a stupid decision. I took Justin Falk here. All right. And the reason I took Justin Falk here is because at this time in 2010, the Canes would have needed a defenseman, and they would actually end up drafting Justin Falk a bit later. I'm pretty sure they would draft him only like 30 picks later. But the thing is, Justin Falk would be a much better pick than taking someone like John Klingberg, who's also here, because one, I think he could fit with being a younger guy out here with these guys. The Canes, I wouldn't say they were the youngest team. They're not what they are now. I mean, they had veterans on that team. They had, I think they had all 3 of the Stahl brothers or 2 of the 3 Stahl brothers at that time on their team. And it's a really old team there in Carolina. But, I just think that Justin Falk would be a much better pick for the Hurricanes here. I think he would fit in perfectly. I don't really see John Klingberg becoming a Carolina Hurricane. I think he's perfect where he is in Dallas right now. He's playing with aggressive players. Carolina did not have that much of an aggressiveness, and I think that's where Justin Falk slips into.
Nice pick. So if I had to pick 8th overall, that's the Winnipeg Jets, formerly the Atlanta Thrashers, and they originally selected Alexander Burmistrov.
Rest in peace, Atlanta. We're here for you. Atlanta strong.
And Burmistrov, well, just to say the least, he did not live up to his potential.
Yeah.
For that, I'd go with Brian. I'm actually going to go with Brian Rust. Yeah. Maybe another shocking pick going off the board, but over the last 4 or 5 years, he's really developed into a true top 6 player for Pittsburgh. You can play him on the first or second line. He's an effective point scorer. He's fast. He's a smart player. You can play him anywhere in the lineup. And just like I said with Gallagher, Hyman, Toffoli, they're all very similar type players in my eyes. You can play them on many lines. They know what they're good at. They keep it simple. They score some goals, and you can play them with many different players. So that's why I went with Brian Rust. I think he'd be an interesting fit in Winnipeg.
For number 8, I had Evgeny Kuznetsov, and I think they needed a center here. At this point, the Thrashers, I don't know exactly who they had on their roster because, I wasn't even following hockey by the time the Thrashers were gone. But,
I had Brian Little, Nick Ampetrov, and so I see why they took Nemistrov because their center core wasn't that strong. But
definitely Kuznetsov was the better Russian here, in my opinion. I think that he was much better because, Kuznetsov, we look at him now. All right. And Kuznetsov was a pretty decent center to fit in anywhere. I mean, he can fit in at any line. He can play fourth line. He can play first line. And of course, they're not going to put him at first line. But, again, he's an all-around decent center. He's not all of these guys are going to become like Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid at some point, as we can see now. None of them have. Maybe Mark Stone could be considered one of them. Well, I don't see even Taylor Hall or Tyler Seguin being considered like Matthews or McDavid. But here in this draft class, I'd say that the players that we have, if they were to put into one whole team, they would be an excellent fit. I mean, it's a good team overall. But I just don't see why they would take someone like Ryan Johansson over someone like Evgeny Kuznetsov. Look, you can put Kuznetsov with another Russian player in Ilya Kovalchuk, who was there at the time. I'm pretty sure Kovalchuk was there in 2010. So if now then actually I'm looking it up right now. Kovalchuk was then traded to New Jersey in February of 2010. So now that this is June of 2010, they need someone to replace Kovalchuk, and I think Kuznetsov would be the better fit. But if they had Kovalchuk and Kuznetsov on that line, think about it. The Russians will have a better chemistry if you then considering someone like Ryan Johansson or someone else like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's a good pick.
Yeah. So then for I think we're on number 9 now,
Yeah,
right?
Minnesota.
We have the Minnesota Wild, and I'll kick this one off. This is the one I'm going with Ryan Johansson here, and look at this. So Ryan Johansson has taken the most faceoffs, 10,365 since he was drafted, and has the highest winning percentage in faceoffs, 53.1 in the 2010 class, minimum 10 faceoffs. This is as of April 25th, 2020. All right. Unfortunately, I couldn't pull up the stats for 2021, but I can double check that fact if it's now changed. But I'm pretty sure no one can beat that number as of right now. Ryan Johansson is definitely probably the Nashville's best center right now. I wouldn't even consider Duchesne to be even close to that number, but I think Ryan Johansson is an underrated guy. All right, I think we're both underrating him right now. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's terrible. He's a good player overall. He plays an aggressive game as well. He can if he wants to. He's a good goal scorer, and he obviously you can see he can take faceoffs. So I mean, why wouldn't the Minnesota Wild want someone like that to play with, like Ryan Suter and play with not Ryan Suter, play with Zach Parise, excuse me. I mean, these guys would be together and they could play hockey forever. I mean, this would be a great duo. So I can see that as a Ryan Johansson pick for the Wild at pick number 9.
Pick 9, I'm going with Cam Fowler. Originally, he's one of the only players in the first round still left on their team. Besides, there's the Tarasenko, Swartz, Brock Nelson, I believe, and I think that's it. But Cam Fowler, I mean, sturdy as they
and
come.
Brendan Gallagher.
Oh, yeah, I meant in the first round.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at a guy like Cam Fowler, I mean, he's pretty. He's nothing too flashy, but he's an effective 3-4 defenseman. That's what he's been throughout his career, and you get what you get out of this guy. Great skater, great leader. He's been on Anaheim for a long time, well respected in that dressing room over there. I think a lot of people kind of underestimate this guy because, I mean, he's not a 1-2 defenseman, but he's a solid 3 defenseman, and I think he could bring a lot to a Minnesota team, especially if they ever did sign the Ryan Suter, Zach Parise deals. You had Fowler behind that.
That was a huge deal. I mean, wow.
That's why we don't allow 14-year contracts anymore. Yeah. But I think Cam Fowler could he'd be a solid fit in Minnesota. I think he'd.
Is he still there? I mean, is that contract still existing?
Yeah, they still have like 5 years left, I think. 4 years left, 5 years left, or something.
He's worth $11 million per year, right?
Suter and Parise are worth like 7.5
each. That is insane. How do they even have the salary cap to do that? That's why I haven't seen any big signings from the Minnesota Wild in like years. I mean,
and back in the day, that money was the top of the market and now obviously the market has obviously increased, as we can see, due to the salary cap rising and other variables. But
yeah,
just those two contracts. Wow, that's insane. But yeah, Cam Fowler, Minnesota, I think would be a great fit.
All right. So yeah, now we're at pick number 10, and the Rangers are on the clock. So if you mind, I'll take this one. This is where I'm taking John Klingberg, boys. All right. And the reason I'm taking John Klingberg here at number 10 is because the Rangers are stacked on forwards. I remember this 2010-11 team. They had big forward. They had big enforcers here. They had Brendan Dubinsky. They had Sean Avery. Sean Avery, probably the biggest pest in the NHL. Maybe not of all time, but definitely one of them. If a guy who changes the rule is definitely considered a pest in the NHL. And they had decent centers. I mean, besides Dubinsky, they had Derek Stepan, who was young, playing his first season. He was a rookie. And they had Artem Anisimov, who was considered a very good center at the point. I think the Rangers needed a defenseman at that time. The guys they had there were Ryan McDonough, who was going to play his first year next year, but he was going to play a few games in 2010-11 season. They had Dan Girardi, and they had a decent Mark Stahl at the time. And, these three guys were definitely considered, the ultimate top three defensemen of the entire NHL, of the Rangers decade team. I think that all three of them were absolutely insane. McDonough and Girardi were good, big guys who could play hard. And I think Klingberg would be a good fit to put with Ryan McDonough, a young group of two rookies players. And then you have Stahl and Girardi, the leaders who can mentor them throughout. And, New York was in great shape at that time. Unfortunately, they just collapsed because they suck, but, it's fine. But yeah, pick number 10 for me would definitely be John Klingberg. And they picked Dylan McIlrath, but McIlrath at that point, he was good for a few years. And then he had a terrible knee injury, then he got traded, and then he got traded again, and now he got sent down somewhere. I forgot where he is now.
I think he's in Detroit in the AHL, maybe.
Yeah, he's in the AHL for Detroit. He's with the Grand Rapids right now, but it's a really devastating injury, and it's sad to see him go. He was a good enforcer as well.
Yeah, 10th overall. I'm also going with John Klingberg here. Looking at their defense, Dan Girardi was a rock back there. Yeah. Ryan McDonough, young stud, and then Mark Stahl. I mean, I feel bad if he never had that eye injury. I still think he would be an effective defenseman today.
It hurts me so much, man.
Yeah, and then you look at a guy, add John Klingberg to that mix. He'd be the best puck mover out of those four. You could keep that four for the next six years. That's your core four for the next six, and then that's pretty solid.
And I mean, their team was full of veterans. I mean, they had a lot of veterans. They had Chris Drury was the captain at that time. All right. They had Michael Roosevelt was another good forward. I mean, of course, they had Sean Avery, and then you got the big guys who fight a lot. You got Derek Bugard. I mean, Bugard is considered one of the best enforcers of the game. He was a scary man. Unfortunately, he did pass away, but he was considered a big guy. Yeah. Sean Avery, of course, and you can't count him out. But talking about defensemen for the Rangers, I think in 2010 and 11, their 6 ones were Roosevelt, Michael Sauer, Stahl, Delzato, and I'd probably put Girardi in there. But yeah, I think that definitely bad too. Delzato was good at that point, and then he got traded for Kevin Klein. But I think Klingberg would be a good fit there as well. So I'm glad we agreed on that one. So 11 is going to be the Stars, and give me your pick here, Cam.
I think I'm going to go with – I was thinking of a couple people, and I didn't mean to drop Philip Grubauer this much down. I wanted to rank him a little higher, but now he's starting to emerge as a superstar goaltender. And adding him to a team like Dallas, who was searching for goaltending after the retirement of Marty Turco, and they found it with Ben Bishop a little bit later. But a guy like Grubauer, I think he'd fit right in right now for Dallas, especially with the injuries in net. And he'd be the perfect goaltender to lead this team into the future.
So, I was thinking they should go for a defenseman prior to this, but, I thought to myself, why don't they go for a forward here? And of course, later in the future, they would get Tyler Seguin, and that would be a good duo with Jamie Benn. That's why for number 11, I picked someone else. I picked Jaden Schwartz. I took Jaden Schwartz here at number 11. He would be later on a St. Louis Blue player. He would be on the Blues, and he would be an alternate captain as he is right now. And Schwartz is an amazing guy. He's a well-respected dude in the locker room. He was good at one point. I don't know his stats as of right now. I can try.
They're not as good as they used to be.
Yeah, I mean, he used to be incredible. I don't know what happened to him now, but of course, we're never ever going to deny what he's done for the Blues. I mean, as of 2020, he only had 21 points, and his career high was 63 in 2015. But Schwartz overall, he's a good guy to become a leader, And I think he and Sagan together with Jamie Benn is an incredible first line. So I will take Jaden Schwartz here at pick number 11. So yeah, for number
Oh, good.
12.
Go ahead.
Sorry, at pick number 12, then the Ducks are on the clock, and I'll take this one here. This is where I picked Brendan Gallagher, and there isn't a stats category to measure what beats in a man's chest, right? So I pulled the red flag right out right now. I'm pulling it myself. You don't even need to do it. I know this is a scary pick what I'm doing here, but I think Gallagher really would be a good guy on this Ducks team. He's 5'9". He's 184 pounds. This is literally a midget. I am taller than this guy, okay? And he's forever played guys who are much bigger than him and heavier than him. And, he is fifth in the 2010 class in goals. He has 100. He's fifth in the 2010 class in goals. He's 10th in games, and in points, he's also 10th. But I think he is definitely the top 5 in this draft class in terms of overall, because he has the skill to shoot, he has the leadership skills, and he has the aggressiveness in him for a guy who's only 5'9". So, he's kind of like a Brad Marchand type guy. Of course, Marchand's miles better, but, again, definitely Brendan Gallagher would be a good fit on the Ducks team, especially now considering how young this team is. So that's why I will take Brendan Gallagher at pick number 12.
Good pick. I'm going with Brock Nelson. Still on the team that drafted him. He was drafted in the late first round, and he's really developed into a strong second-line center. And he put him on a team. Maybe he plays a similar game to Ryan Getzlaf did in his prime. Very power forward, very willing to shoot the puck and get in the right lanes to intercept passes and all that. But Brendan Gallagher, put him on the Ducks right behind Ryan Getzlaf. I think that'd be a pretty good second, third line center there. That'd be a good option, and I think it would have made Anaheim stronger than they are now.
Yeah. And so now 13th is the Coyotes. I'll take this one here. This is the pick where I put Jeff Skinner. And, it's kind of weird why I put Jeff Skinner here. But again, it makes sense. Now, he has definitely his production rate has definitely decreased. We can all admit that. The Sabres absolutely messed with him. He was a great prospect in Carolina. Then he would become a great player in Carolina. And I was expecting him to stay on that team for the longest time being. But I don't know. I don't know. I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he was given a very heavy contract that was absolutely messed up, and you can see the proof as of this year. But I think with the Coyotes at that point, I don't remember who was on their team, but with guys like Shane Doan, for example, I think OEL was there at that time. But those two guys with a guy like Jeff Skinner, they could have made somewhat of a trio. I mean, on defense, if they were all playing at the same time, I think they could have definitely been a good package. But that's why I'm going to take Jeff Skinner here. It's a weird pick, but again, it makes sense in my mind as to why I think Jeff Skinner would fit with a guy like Shane Doan, for example, and then later on with a bunch of new guys like Clayton Keller and Max Domi, and eventually.
Yeah, I think Jeff Skinner would look pretty. I think he'd be better in Arizona than I think Buffalo ruins everybody. So I got to feel bad, and I don't think his career would be as bad as it is right now. You give him the money, $9 million for a guy who's a 60-point scorer throughout his career. That's already questionable enough. So a guy, then he signs long-term to a place that with no identity. That's obviously going to mess with a man's head. For my pick, I'm actually going to go with Jaden Schwartz. I think, like you said, I mean, this guy has won a cup. He's been a up and down player, but very he's been a solid NHL guy. I mean, second, third line guy. Can score 20 goals a year, and put him on a team like Arizona. And I think it would be a good fit for a guy like Jaden Schwartz. I think he'd play a similar role to what he plays in St. Louis.
That's a good pick. That fits too. Both of them are now veterans. I mean, it's good to consider both of them. Now at 14, the Blues are on the clock. This is where I took Brock Nelson. And, the reason I took Brock Nelson here at 14 was because, there's just, I see the guys behind Brock Nelson. I'm not going to reveal one of them because he's my next pick, but, like Mikael Granlund, Nino Niederreiter, Charlie Coyle, Brian Russ, Jason Zucker, Zach Hyman, and Philip Grubauer was a goalie. But, you consider, and Nick Bajustad, you can also include him. Why not? But I just don't understand why anyone would want to take those guys over Brock Nelson. Seeing what Brock Nelson has done over the years, now that the Islanders are consistent playoff teams, that he's just the guy who's been carrying this team, and he's one of the longest tenured guys on the team right now. And they have a lot of long tenured guys, but Brock Nelson has been there from the start. He's a homegrown talent of the Islanders. I think if he was on the Blues, he could be right behind Tarasenko, and then later on he would be right behind O'Reilly. He can play third line. He can absolutely play third line. He does not need to play on the same line as O'Reilly or Tarasenko. He can lead a third line team or a fourth line team. That is no doubt. The Islanders, one thing I'll compliment them is that they can put anyone on any line. You see Casey Cizikas, he can be a second line talent, but he's on the fourth line. So they can put anyone on anywhere they want to. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I think Brock Nelson would be a perfect fit for the Blues.
Yeah, Pajot's leading the Islanders in playoff scoring right now. He's technically their third line center, but you know how Barry Trotz is. He's going to roll all four lines.
Yeah,
he's going to match up the Pajot line with the Bergeron line. So honestly, depending on who your coach is, like if Brock Nelson, let's say, is on the third line of the LA Kings or whatever, I mean, he can still be an effective player.
But again, Craig Berube can do whatever he wants to do. I mean, he would win a Stanley Cup championship 9 years later, but I think he would be able to put Nelson wherever he felt like at that point. So
yeah, for sure.
So our last 15th pick is the Kings, and I will let Cam steal this one if he wants to quickly, but this is the last pick, and then we're gonna get to our honorable mentions here.
All right. For my 14th pick, I'm just going to say it quickly. It's Freddie Anderson. I think the Blues could use a goalie at that time.
It's the Kings.
Yeah. And then for my 15th pick, because I didn't mention my 14th.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
no, it's okay. For my 15th pick, I'm actually going to go with Jonas Donskoy. Kind of a late bloomer. Really developed. Drafted by the Panthers. Signed with the Sharks. Started his career off with some great playoff performances in San Jose. And then I think in LA he could do just the same. If join a team that was a modern day dynasty.
Yeah.
And now,
unfortunately, I hate this team, but it's okay.
Yeah. And then put him on a team like LA. He could, now he's on Colorado, which is he's a very effective player there. So I mean, I think put Jonas Donskoy pick 15. It's a safe pick. I think he'd be effective, and that's who I'm selecting.
And for my 15th pick, I'm going with Kevin Hayes. All right, now Kevin Hayes was taken by the Blackhawks, the 24th pick, but I'm telling you, this guy is so underrated. He is extremely underrated. And I would say, as of last year, he became a bit more hyped up in the media, but he didn't play a single NHL game until 4 years later when he was signed by the Rangers, an entry-level contract. And, with the Rangers, he didn't do so much progress. I'll be honest with you. He was put behind Derek Stepan and Derek Brassard in his first 2 seasons. Then Mika Zibanejad came and he was absolutely thrown under the dust. Then Oscar Lindbergh came and he was even thrown more under the dust. But Kevin Hayes has been the one guy I felt that everyone needs to appreciate. First of all, he has a great personality. I've met him before. He's an absolutely funny ass man. I'm telling you right now, he's a clown,
Dorchester
but
man.
He's so funny. He's the Dorchester man. I'm telling you right now, he is an absolute funny ass man. And second of all, he's great with scoring. I mean, let's look at Kevin Hayes' production for a second, right? He played 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18. He played 5 seasons with the New York Rangers, and now he's playing his 3rd season with the Philadelphia Flyers now. And over the years, his production has been okay. So, his best production was 2018-19. He played with 2 teams there. He played with the Rangers, and he was traded for the Jets for a shitty Brendan Lemieux, but Brendan Lemieux would then be traded later. He put up 55 points that year with the Rangers and with 12 games he played for the Jets, but then his second best year was 49, then 45, 44, 41, 36. And then this year he had 31 with the Flyers. So, he's now earned an alternate captain spot for the Flyers. And, I think that he fits perfectly with the Kings. I think they can put him right behind Anze Kopitar. Absolutely no doubt. This would be a team that would win the Stanley Cup 1 year later, right? So we consider them to be, if they have a lot of veterans on that team. They have Dustin Brown, Drew Doughty, and of course Anze Kopitar, those 3 main guys who are still on the team today. And I think that Kevin Hayes definitely fits on that role, and he'll be the 15th pick for the LA Kings. And I'm gonna list my all honorable mentions right now. Due to time constraints, I will not be able to explain most of them, but I'll give a quick explanation as to why. So first one is Charlie Coyle for me. All right, Coyle is clearly one of the Bruins' best centers right now. Bergeron would be at number 1, but Coyle is a number 2 center. I think any team that's going to pick him next is going to be able to put him either not number 1, maybe number 2. But Charlie Coyle is my first one. My second one would be Jason Zucker. Okay. And Jason Zucker, they can help. He can help replace any, at the time, at 2010, he can help replace any replenishing rosters because he is a guy who grows really fast, in my opinion. I think he's a great hockey player overall. Now he's a good veteran presence for the Penguins, and I think he's an absolutely good fit anywhere else at this time. My third one would be Jack Campbell. Now, Jack Campbell, we didn't see much of him throughout his course with LA, but in the playoffs this year, he proves that he's the number 1 goalie, and he's staying the number 1 goalie for the Maple Leafs. He's an absolutely insane guy. You love how he takes charge for the team, right? You saw him in that interview after the Maple Leafs were knocked out of the playoffs in Game 7. He took the charge for it, and he showed full emotion. So you can show that he is a guy who's willing to take charge of a team. So Campbell will be number 3. Number 4, I did pick Philip Grubauer. All right. Philip Grubauer here at number 4 because he is probably the best German goalie, I think, in the NHL. I think he's an absolutely great guy. He's a great hockey player, and he's a great goalie as well. And lastly, I wanted to include a penalty killer here because, penalty killing is a big asset of the game. So that's why I picked Jesper Foss here. And I put Foss at number 5 because Foss is a great penalty killer. And we've seen it with the Rangers. He's also a great leader. So knowing that he's been on the team for one of the longest times being for almost 5 seasons, I put Jesper Foss at number 5.
Nice. I'm going to go over my top 5 picks quickly. One, I'll say Kevin Hayes. Like I said, he's a guy who can pluck into the middle 6, and he's an effective player. He's he can get you 40 points. He'll get anywhere from 40 to 60 points. It's a solid production. For my second pick, I'll say Jack Campbell. He's really starting to emerge as a goaltender. And I always say goaltenders take a little bit longer to develop than everybody else. So if you have a goaltender who's 26 years old in your system, I wouldn't quite give up on him yet because some goaltenders just need a little bit longer to develop. For my third pick, so I got Hayes, I got Campbell. I'd probably say Jeff Skinner. I mean, if Carolina didn't ruin this guy, Buffalo didn't ruin this guy's development, he'd still be a solid 50, 60 point player. Then I'd probably say Ryan Johansson. Tough career. He was solid in Columbus. Once goes to Nashville, overpays him, and then he doesn't live up to his production, what is worth his salary, but he's still a solid center even if he was making $4 million instead of $8 million. And for my final pick, I don't know. I'd probably say I have the list written down somewhere.
Jesper Fast. Jesper Fast.
He wants me to go Jesper Fast. Why am I not? How did I leave the Zoom? I'm still here. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could go anybody from Jesper Fast to you love guys who can kill penalties. I could say Charlie Coyle as well. Yeah, he's a solid third line center. I can go with any of those guys, and anywhere from 15 to 30, you can probably fluctuate many different guys in those roles because there's so many players that are so similar. And that's all.
Let's leave that as a fan vote. You guys pick Cam's 5th free honorable mention. Well, how about that? So why you guys in the comment section below definitely pick Cam's 5th honorable mention who should be considered in the top 15, or if not in the top 15, in the top 20, because we have 5 honorable mentions here. So long, guys. I hope everyone enjoys their weekend. It's a good time to get nostalgic again. The 2010 draft had a lot of great talents in there. Had some pretty bad ones too. If you look at the actual list, that was just above your screen a few minutes ago. But hope you guys enjoy your week. Keep watching the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll keep you updated about any other news that's going on. And so long. So take care, guys.
Take care, guys.